It was a quiet February morning in Wampum, Pennsylvania, a rural town where most people knew their neighbors and crime was almost unheard of. The sun had barely risen over the snow-covered fields when police received a 911 call that would send shockwaves through the nation. Inside a modest farmhouse, a 26-year-old woman named Kenzie Houk was found dead in her bed, shot once in the back of the head while she slept. Beside her lay her unborn child, just days away from entering the world. The person who discovered the body was her 4-year-old daughter. But the real horror was only beginning, because investigators would soon accuse an 11-year-old boy of pulling the trigger. That boy's name was Jordan Brown. Jordan was a 5th grader at the local elementary school, a quiet and well-behaved student who loved video games, riding his bike, and playing baseball. He lived with his father, Chris Brown, who had recently moved in with his fiancé, Kenzie Houk, and her 2 young daughters, Janessa and Adeline. On the surface, they looked like a blended family trying to make things work, a father starting over, a young woman expecting a new baby, and 3 children who were slowly learning to live under one roof. But behind that fragile peace, jealousy, resentment, and confusion were brewing, and soon tragedy would shatter whatever harmony existed. On the morning of February 20, 2009, everything appeared normal. Jordan and his father woke up early as usual. Chris Brown left for work around 8 a.m., while Jordan got ready for school with his soon-to-be stepsisters. According to investigators, before leaving for the school bus, Jordan allegedly went upstairs to retrieve his youth-sized 20-gauge shotgun, a gift from his father for hunting, walked into Kenzie's bedroom while she was still asleep, and fired a single shot into the back of her head. The report claimed that after the shooting, he calmly placed the shotgun back in its case, got into the car with 7-year-old Janessa, and waited for the school bus. The 2 children went to school as if nothing had happened. Hours later, Kenzie's body was found by her parents, and the police were called. When law enforcement arrived, they were met with a gruesome scene. The young woman was dead, her pillow stained with blood, and her unborn child, a boy she had planned to name Christopher, had also perished. The shotgun shell found near the bed matched the kind used in Jordan's gun. Detectives began questioning everyone in the house, but something about Jordan's behavior made them suspicious. He didn't cry or ask many questions, he seemed confused but calm. Within a few hours, the unimaginable happened. The police arrested the 11-year-old boy and charged him with 2 counts of homicide, one for Kenzie and one for her unborn baby. The arrest of such a young child for such a violent crime sent the media into a frenzy. Headlines across the country screamed of "America's youngest murderer," and TV trucks crowded the small Pennsylvania town. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, and the public struggled to comprehend how an 11-year-old could be capable of murder. Jordan's father, Chris, was devastated. He insisted his son was innocent, that there was no way his boy could have done something so cold and deliberate. He loved her, Chris told reporters. He was excited to have a baby brother. There's no way he could have done this. But investigators painted a different picture. They claimed Jordan was jealous of Kenzie's pregnancy, that he feared losing his father's attention once the new baby arrived. They argued that the murder was an impulsive act of anger. Prosecutors were so confident in their theory that they sought to try Jordan as an adult, which meant he could face life in prison without parole if convicted. The idea of a 5th grader being sent to an adult prison shocked the world and sparked fierce debate about juvenile justice in America. The trial process dragged on for years. Because of Jordan's age, there were endless legal battles about whether he should be tried as an adult or a juvenile. He was kept in a juvenile detention center while the case made its way through the courts. During those years, he missed birthdays, holidays, and his childhood. He maintained his innocence from the beginning, insisting that he didn't shoot Kenzie and that he never saw or heard anything unusual that morning. His father stood by him every step of the way, saying, they just needed someone to blame. Forensic evidence was thin and controversial. There were no fingerprints, no blood, and no gunshot residue on Jordan's hands or clothing. The only physical link was a single shotgun shell found near Kenzie's body, the same type used in Jordan's youth shotgun, which wasn't unusual since it was a common brand of ammunition. The prosecution relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and the testimony of Kenzie's 7-year-old daughter, Janessa. She told police that she heard what sounded like a gunshot after Jordan had gone upstairs to get ready that morning. But her story changed slightly over time, and the defense argued that her memory could have been influenced by adults or trauma. Years went by as the case wound through Pennsylvania's complex court system. The legal tug-of-war over whether Jordan would be tried as an adult or a juvenile became a national conversation. Child psychologists, legal experts, and human rights advocates debated on television whether an 11-year-old could truly form the intent to commit murder. The case exposed deep flaws in how the justice system handles children accused of serious crimes. Jordan's defense team argued that the investigation had been biased from the start, that police ignored other leads, including a report of a suspicious man near the property that morning, and focused entirely on the boy because of his proximity and the weapon in the house. In 2012, after years of hearings, Jordan was finally tried in juvenile court behind closed doors, as is standard procedure for minors. The judge found him delinquent, the juvenile equivalent of guilty, of first-degree murder. Jordan, then 15, was ordered to remain in juvenile custody until his 21st birthday. For many, it seemed the story had ended there, a young boy condemned for a crime he swore he didn't commit. But Jordan refused to give up hope. He spent the following years quietly studying, reading, and working on his education while his legal team continued to fight for his freedom. Finally, in 2018, nearly 9 years after Kenzie's death, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court reviewed the case and overturned Jordan Brown's conviction. The justices ruled that there was insufficient evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he had committed the crime. The court criticized the reliance on circumstantial evidence and stated that the prosecution's theory didn't hold up under scrutiny. Jordan, who had spent almost his entire adolescence behind bars, was declared innocent. He walked free at age 20, stepping out into a world that had moved on without him. The decision was met with mixed reactions. Kenzie Houk's family was devastated and angry, believing justice had been denied. Jordan's father and supporters, on the other hand, called it a long overdue vindication. For Jordan, it was bittersweet freedom. He had lost nearly a decade of his life, his childhood tainted by headlines that branded him a killer before he even had a chance to defend himself. Reporters tried to reach him, but he mostly avoided the spotlight, choosing privacy and peace after years of public scrutiny. Today, the murder of Kenzie Houk remains officially unsolved. No other suspects have ever been charged. The unanswered questions continue to haunt those who followed the case. If Jordan didn't do it, then who did? Was it an intruder, as some defense witnesses suggested? Could there have been an accidental discharge? Or did the truth vanish in the fog of assumptions made on that February morning? What's certain is that the case changed the way many Americans viewed juvenile justice. It reminded the public that the system can make devastating mistakes, especially when fear and pressure drive decisions faster than evidence. Jordan's case became a powerful symbol of the danger of rushing to judgment, particularly when the accused is a child. Legal experts now reference it in discussions about how minors should be questioned, charged, and represented in serious crimes. The story also sparked conversations about media ethics, how sensational coverage can shape public opinion before a fair trial even begins. Many have called Jordan's case a modern-day lesson in patience, fairness, and humanity. Years after his release, Jordan has spoken rarely about his experience, but in one interview, he said, "I lost my childhood, but I didn't lose who I am." Those words carry the quiet resilience of someone who lived through something no child should ever face, years of isolation, accusation, and fear, only to emerge into adulthood with a tarnished name and a heavy heart. The tragedy of the Jordan Brown case lies not only in the crime itself but in what followed, a justice system that failed to see a child as a child. Whether innocent or guilty, Jordan was thrust into a legal machine built for adults, not for understanding or compassion. His story remains a haunting reminder that justice isn't just about punishment, it's about truth, and the courage to admit when the system gets it wrong. For every child like Jordan, there's a question that lingers long after the courtrooms close: how do you give back the years that were taken away by doubt?